Hey YouTubers, this is BKE Entertainment, aka Brooklyn Equinox Entertainment, bringing you our first movie review. Now on these reviews, I'm just going to give you my best and honest opinion on the movie. All my reviews will contain spoilers as I discuss deeply and openly on all aspects of the movie. So if you're watching this video, I recommend you watch the film first, mostly because I would love to hear your opinions and comments on all aspects of the film. So if you got a few minutes and love movies like I do, let's get into the review. So the movie that we are reviewing today is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, directed by Christopher McQuarrie. This is a sequel to Mission Impossible Fallout and the 7th installment in the Mission Impossible film series. The movie sees Tom Cruise return as Ethan Hunt, whose IMF team matches with for the powerful rogue AI known as the Entity. The assembled cast also features Haley Atwell, Ben Rames, Simon Pegg, and Paul Clementiev. Now, the film starts aboard what is known as the Sevastopol, a Russian submarine. The whole scene plays out pretty well, giving us a Prism Tide type feel. And after watching the opening scene, I gathered that this movie was going to have a lot of misdirection and deception. We soon later catch up with Ethan, who learns of the threat of the Entity and the two cruciform keys. Now initially, I felt that the Entity would be a bit vague as an antagonist, especially for Ethan. If anything, one would think the Entity was made specifically for the characters of Luther and Benji to deal with. But throughout the film, we learn more and more about the Entity and that it was originally designed to sabotage digital systems, but somehow achieve sentience and gain the ability to infiltrate major military systems and intelligence networks all around the world. But ultimately, the key to me that was missing from the plot was who was the sole creator of the Entity. Hopefully, that mystery will be more explored in part 2. Soon after, Ethan meets up with Elsa, played by Rebecca Ferguson, who is back from Rogue Nation. They have a Desert Storm gunfight during an actual sandstorm. This sequence was pretty fun. A lot of quick cuts, but decent camera work and angles. But I still don't know how anyone was able to shoot and aim at anybody during all that sand blowing around. The movie then takes us to a major sequence at the very massive Abu Dhabi International Airport where we catch up with Luther and Benji. It's always great to see Ben Rames as Luther, but in this film, although his presence is felt throughout certain scenes, I do feel like we don't get enough of his character in this movie, and hopefully we'll get more in part 2. Pegg as Benji is always fun to watch. He does a great job of bringing humor to life and death situations, but at the same time still making you believe there are stakes involved. We are then introduced to Grace, a master pickpocket thief, and when I say master, I do mean master. Kudos to the casting of Atwell. Her chemistry pairs off really well with Cruise, and it builds and builds throughout the entire film as they continuously do their cat and mouse chase with one another. By the time we get to Rome, we learn of another character, Gabriel, played by Issei Morales. Now, Gabriel is the movie's second antagonist or main, depending on how you want to look at it. Now, his backstory is very vague and ambiguous. Supposedly, he knew Ethan before he joined the IMF and was involved in a death or murder that led to Ethan having to join the IMF in the first place. His reasoning and sanity can be questioned as a character since he basically worships or treats the Entity like a god. My only issue with the character of Gabriel was that it was not enough information about him. All we know that he was extremely dangerous, and a lot of stuff that is dealt with him took place sometime before Mission Impossible Part 1. Now, Morales does a good job and plays the character straight, but it wouldn't have hurt to have him play the character a touch more viciously. Afterwards, big action sequence, basically a huge car chase scene. It's here we really get to introduce to Clementiev character Paris and third antagonist. Clementiev plays a French assassin who works for Gabriel and plays the role really well. Throughout the movie, she keeps the protagonists on their toes, which was really fun to watch. The car chase scenes were really great. The camera work, the stunt team, and crew's own driving made for very slick and often humorous moments. Again, this only worked because of the pairing of Atwell with Cruise throughout all these scenes. Later on, we're back in Venice, where Alana, played by Vanessa Kirby, is back Beth from Fallout. We learn that she has one of the cruciform keys. She intends to take the other key from Grace and sell it to a mysterious buyer. But it was at this point in the movie I began to wonder that how did anyone attain these keys in the first place? Now it's never explained if these are the same keys from the destruction of the Sevastopol or if these are copies. If these are the same keys from the Sevastopol, it's very curious who was able to find them under the ice. But if these were copies, then whoever created them can always make another set. Enter the creator of the entity. Hopefully they'll explore the origin of the cruciform keys a little bit more in part 2. All hell breaks loose after the meeting in Venice, which leads to one of my favorite sequences in the movie, the narrow alleyway fight. Ethan engages with Paris and her crew in a somewhat stylish but rugged fight that takes place in a tight alleyway. The scene was very different and I appreciated it. It had the essence of a Jackie Chan fight, which they had to work with what they had in the space they had room with. Meanwhile, Gabriel and Ilsa fight to the death on the bridge. Ilsa was channeling her inner Black Widow with multiple hurricane riders, while Gabriel brought his blades to the fight that would probably make even Machete proud. Ethan reaches the fight a bit too late and Ilsa had been killed. It's at this point in the movie the stakes have really been brought to fruition. Ultimately, you never want to see characters killed off, but Ethan needed some stakes added to his character and to this mission as well. Otherwise, everything would have been just an adventure. So I definitely understand why they chosen to kill Ilsa off. We finally reached the third act, where we are told everything will come to a conclusion on the Orient Express train. Now, it's at this point where the plot gets a little funny. Ethan and Grace have to get on the train to pose as Alana and her guard to make the purchase with the buyer. This is simple enough, but when Ethan's masks fail, we're told that there's no other way for him to get on the train but to hop on it while the train is in motion. To me, that was a simple excuse to get Tom Cruise to set up his epic stunt attempt, which was done really well. But these are spies. I'm sure they could have thought of some other ways for him to get on the train. Maybe sneak on before it was in motion, or pretend to be a cook, worker, or passenger with good old-fashioned wigs and makeup if a disguise was really that important. Obviously, he couldn't pose as Alana Guard, but he definitely could have gotten on the train in other simple ways. Evidently, we find out Gabriel is already on the train after Paris simply hops on the train herself and releases him. Gabriel sabotages the train and we learn that the director of national intelligence is knee-deep involved. After meeting with Gabriel, Grace, after posing as Alana, learned that the buyer is Kittredge, played by Henry Kearney, and all of a sudden the US government is looking very fishy right now. While all this is happening, Crew's death-defying stunt takes off. I heard multiple attempts were done to make sure that they got the stunt exactly the way they wanted. Kudos to Cruise for the amazing stunt, but I do wonder how many motorcycles were ruined by attempting this stunt so many times. My only takeaway from the stunt was how much the cliff looked like CGI, but beyond that, it was done really well. All hell breaks loose once again. Grace's cover is blown, Gabriel kills the director and attempts to even kill Paris, and Ethan inexplicably arrives at the right place at the right time. This all leads to a standoff between Ethan and Gabriel on top of the Orient Express. The fight was okay, but I do question a bit how they were able to stand and hold on to things pretty well on a moving train that was going at least 80 miles per hour. Gabriel escapes, but now Ethan and Grace have to deal with a runaway train. This sets up the last intense action sequence. As the train falls, Ethan and Grace have to quickly navigate throughout each train as it falls off the cliff. The best moment to me was when they got to the kitchen part of the train. All that hot oil splashing around, along with the gas and fire. I can only imagine how intense that could have been in real life to get through. That was a very excellent segment, but it all comes to an end when Ethan and Grace get stuck in the next car. As they're about to fall to their deaths, Ethan and Grace are miraculously saved by Paris. No pun intended, but Paris became the key to Ethan's mission. She not only helps him survive, but also helps him learn what the cruciform keys unlock. This potentially sets up a major role shift for Paris, as she may be an important ally in part 2. Ethan escapes with the keys and Grace tells Kittredge that she wants to join the IMF. This basically sets the stage for part 2. All the characters have their agendas, but it seems that the next story will most likely be a race to the Sebastopol in the sequel. So Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. What do I think? Overall, I feel the movie is a great, hard-hitting action spy espionage film with tons of magic tricks and sleight of hand that would even give Penn and Teller a run for their money. Each act had a great action sequence, great use of sets and stunts, and a lot of decent camera work shots and angles, but pretty normal cinematography. I think McQuarrie did a decent job directing this movie. The pacing was good, the action, the intense moments, and even the humor all worked at the right moments. In terms of the plot and character development, I do think that some information could have been added in different areas to make things a bit more clarified. Specifically, what is the origin of the entity and where did Gabriel come from? Grace is probably the only character that had any major development. She started out as a thief for hire and is now potentially an IMF member. Ethan will always be himself, and it seems as well the other supporting characters, but I am interested in seeing the development of Paris as well as Gabriel. Now, at the end of each review, I will be giving each film a rating, and I'm going to be a bit old school and use the star rating system. Each film will receive either a 1 star or anything all the way up to 4 stars. So my rating for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is a solid 3 stars. So that is my review, YouTubers. Definitely check out the movie if you haven't. Please comment down below. I would love to know your thoughts on the movie, as well as your thoughts on my review. I will try to get a review out every week, so stay tuned, and thank you for watching.